Hi everyone, my name is Brandon Hull and I will be your workshop coordinator. I am the head of client development with Fluix. We want to welcome those of you who are watching live to our first live workshop that talks about putting Fluix to work in a really efficient way in order to solve a specific task. And today you've signed up for the workshop where we're talking about how to put your safety documentation on cruise control. There's so many different things that make the job of a safety manager or a safety director very difficult, and we're here to take a lot of that pressure off. So we hope over the course of the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes that in an efficient way we've walked you through a really cool way to put the documentation side of your work, to put it on cruise control, like we say, to make that part of your job easier so you can focus on what we call at Fluix more meaningful work, the work that you were hired to do, which is, in your case, prevent injuries, prevent illnesses, and provide a safe workplace. So again, my name is Brandon Hull. I'm your host. As it just turns out, I also have a background in safety as well. This is going to be a workshop too, I should mention, by the way. A workshop to us versus a webinar means it will be interactive. It'll be casual. We'll talk a little bit about software. We'll talk a little bit about best practices. And hopefully you can feel comfortable participating in the live chat with your questions as well, so we can make this interactive and answer your questions as we go through the process, and your expertise and your experience can be brought to bear as well. But I've got a background in safety, as I mentioned. I was an occupational health and safety technologist for years and a safety consultant working with private companies to improve their workplaces. I did inspections of dairy plants. I did inspections of office environments. I conducted safety committee meetings, safety training for employees, put documentation processes in place. And what I'm going to walk you through today, I think, is a tool that I wish I had when I was a safety director. And I say that for a couple of different reasons. One is the paperwork side of safety, we all know, is a major hassle. It is an important and crucial and vital and required part of safety management, but it's also a difficult part of safety management because you want to spend so much of your time with people, developing safe work practices. You want to spend time investigating injuries or illnesses when they occur, and you don't want to spend your time filling out paperwork, finding paperwork, and having that part, or doing analysis of the injuries that have occurred or the inspections that have occurred in your workplace or your various work locations. So it's a tool that I wish existed back when I did my safety work, and I'm excited to walk you guys through it today. Again, the workshop's purpose today is to help you feel confident that there are more efficient and more streamlined ways to stay on top of the safety documentation side of your responsibilities. So we've kind of divided the workshop into three different specific areas as we go through. Those three areas, you're going to see them on your screen here. Those three areas are really a review of why this is such a problem for safety managers to begin with. We wanted to focus on how you as a safety manager or safety director can have real-time oversight over what's going on in your safety program, and that includes those of you who are safety managers for remote locations, remote employees, multiple job sites, multiple job locations. We're going to talk to you about how to enlist the support of field managers, especially those who are not experts in safety, that you have to rely on to do your safety training classes or send in safety verification, send in safety permits, that sort of thing, or participate in safety committees with their employees at remote locations where you can't be on site. And then we're going to talk about data analysis, which is a crucial part of safety as well. We feel like if we can cover those three areas, we can help you do the 5 most important parts of a safety manager's job, which I'll get to in just a moment. So that's our workshop focus today. That's our agenda for the day. We're going to have a little bit of a mixture between content that I share just to kind of set the groundwork for what we're talking about, as well as real hands-on workshop for how Fluix is used to do this. And if you stick with us to the end, there's a couple great bonuses that we're going to remind you about that are vital for safety managers. So I want you to stick all the way through this to the end. If you have to duck out early and you had questions you wanted to ask, that's okay. You can always reach out to us. We're going to send you a recording along with those free resources that I promised. Those will come out to you as an email with attachments and links so that you can access the recording as well as find out a little bit more about how Fluix works. So if you have questions also, meanwhile, during the course of this workshop today, I'm monitoring the conversation on Fluix, on YouTube. So if you want to use the chat feature and ask a clarification question, make a comment about your specific situation or a hypothetical situation, you want to ask for a friend, for example, about how Fluix works, or about your specific use case or a specific type of permit or a way to streamline the process of managing documentation, feel free to chime in the live chat. Paul, hey, I see that you're checking in as well, so thanks a lot for chiming in. So why is this such an important issue? If you'll forgive me, I'd like to just sort of level set and talk about why we feel like this is such an important subject at Fluix. Fluix has been around for about 8 years. We're a company that is a no-code. We offer a no-code cloud platform that wants to automate tasks, digitize processes, streamline all work that involves anything related to documentation. So we're actually used in safety consulting companies. Some very large safety consulting companies in North America use us. Safety departments internally use us without consultants around the world. They use our platform to work with their field employees, their field managers, and even just within their corporate locations to manage health and safety, distributing safety content and bringing it in. Fluix itself is a spin-off of a company called Riedel, which has been around about 14 years. We were one of the original iOS developers in the iTunes and App Store when the iPhone first came out, and we've been developing phenomenal productivity apps since then. Fluix is our B2B solution that makes the processing of documents and staying on documents and working with a mobile team that much more streamlined and efficient and helpful. We work with companies around the globe. There are hundreds of thousands of employees that are using Fluix's platform day in, day out on their iPads, on their iPhones to submit forms, to access important company documents. And the companies that operate Fluix have great control over the distribution of those documents. I'll spare you too much of the commercial today. You've obviously come to us because you've heard about Fluix, you've been invited to the workshop, and so I'll get right into things here just a little bit. But rest assured that if you were to investigate the platform a little bit further, which we hope you do, that you'd be in really, really good hands across a wide variety of industries, across a wide variety of countries, and Fluix is used in a variety of use cases as well. All right, so why is it so important that we talk about this today? Why is this so crucial? There are way too many injuries. Despite all we know about how to prevent injuries in the workplace today, there are way too many injuries in the workplace still. Often it's because you've got poor or inadequate safety management practices in place. Maybe you need to rely on a lot of people to carry out various aspects of your safety program, managers that are not equipped to prevent safety incidents or injuries in the workplace. Maybe it's the inability to feel like you control employees' behaviors when it comes to safe work practices. Maybe it's just not feeling confident that you can stay on top of every work responsibility, every job duty, and mitigating or eliminating hazards as time goes by. Maybe you feel frustrated and it's difficult to stay on top of this, but we all know there are still today too many injuries in the workplace. It's a real problem, and from an impact, financial impact on the workplace specifically, where you've got downtime, you've got more employees having to do or less employees having to do more of the work because their colleagues are out due to hospitalization or long-term disability, short-term disability. There's a very real financial impact on organizations as well. I'm sharing a few stats. I won't read them, but a few stats on the screen that talk about how big of a problem this is in the U.S., but it's a problem everywhere. Injuries lead to human toll and a financial impact as well. And so our goal today is to help you feel on top of the ability to automate a lot of the paperwork that you do with this. We want to help prevent injuries. That is a big part of what we do, but we know the tedious side of safety management is a problem as well. So here's our mission: automate how you manage safety so you can focus on meaningful work. And the meaningful work that we think of when it comes to a safety manager are the items that you see on the screen. It's the identification of hazards, eliminating those hazards, the proactive work that you do as a safety manager. It's even the ability for employees to report hazards that you may not have been aware of and mitigating, neutralizing, or eliminating those. It's employee communication. It's making sure that your employees are aware of all of your company's safety policies, the safe practices that you expect, getting that information out to employees. And as it changes, making sure that they know the latest information on new policies that you put in place. Maybe, for example, regarding COVID-19. Obviously, we've been all dealing with it for over a year now, but many companies still struggle with this. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration in the U.S., continues to run across companies that have no safe work practices in place as it relates to COVID-19. No employee screenings. No practices for reporting on employees who are showing signs or symptoms of COVID-19 and need to do the contract tracing related to that and ensure that they're removing employees from those types of environments where there's a hazard. So the communication side alone is a real challenge for many companies. Obviously, beyond policies and communication, it's the actual training of safe work practices, hearing protection, confined spaces, hazardous waste removal, other personal protective equipment, back safety, injury prevention. All of these types of topics are topics that are either general or very specific that employees absolutely require if you're going to have an effective safety program. And that time that you spend with them is the meaningful work that a safety director needs to be focused on. And then obviously observing, rewarding, and recognizing safe work behaviors, making sure that the proper practices are in place, and when you see them, highlighting them so that you're very successful with your safety program. So with those things having been said, let's talk about the specific ways that Fluix works for safety directors to stay on top of all of these various aspects here. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna switch over from showing you Keynote or PowerPoint here and switch over to the actual Fluix platform. I'll stay down here tucked over in the corner. And if you have questions as I go through this process, more than happy to answer them. A couple things that I want to share with you as we go into this. There is several aspects of the safety, of running an effective safety program. There's your oversight, as we said in the agenda. There's what you can see in real time, what you have access to as a safety manager in real time. There's what's going on in the field and what mobile access to safety policies, safety forms, that sort of thing that your managers may have. Again, whether that's your literally mobile, where you have multiple work locations, that some of which you can't get to, for example. So there's how you enlist your managers, especially at remote locations. There's that aspect of it. And there's all of the paperwork that comes with those parts. And eliminating the need for paper-based processes. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do. And then the third part is, remember, safety data analysis. So I'm going to cover all three of those as we go through the platform here for the rest of this call. And like I said, feel free to use the live chat with any questions that you have. All right. Let's talk first about oversight of safety. I'm switching over now to the Fluix platform, and I'm doing this because I want to show you some really simple ways that you as a safety manager can get broad oversight over all things going on in your safety program at any given time. And when I say all things going on, what are the types of things I mean? Well, hazards are reported by employees. Inspections are completed and conducted. Full-fledged audits might be completed by plant managers at other locations. Obviously, safety training is getting completed. Permits are being submitted by employees when they need to complete very specific types of tasks. Confined space is one of my favorites, so I'm going to show you an example of that. But there's all of these activities that you as a safety director cannot have direct control or involvement in at all times, but you do want an oversight of what's going on with them at all times. Fluix gives you this, and with very little setup time, with very little configuration, all that sort of thing. But Fluix gives you this oversight over what's going on with your program at all times. What you're seeing right now is me logged in to the Fluix platform. Let's just talk about the type of oversight that you might want as a safety director. I'm clicking on the dashboard of the Fluix, the Fluix browser-based app, and I can see in real time a lot of the documents that have been filed from wherever they've been filed, no matter the location, no matter what manager was involved. As the safety director, I need that sort of bird's eye view over everything that's happening at all times, and I can see that. I can see safety training was completed back on the 29th. I can see who completed it. This safety training was completed. I can see a permit was filed for looks like a remote location, had to do some work at a certain street corner. I can see the date that was done. I can see a safety hazard was reported. I can see that a safety training acknowledgement was submitted by one specific employee. So you can start to see, get an idea how I can see in real time all of these things that have happened. Fluix is really good at giving you that kind of oversight. But what if you just want, you can see I've got a lot of options here of things that I can configure and see and so forth. If I were just to click up here in the user app, you can see I've switched over to a new view of Fluix, and I've got a lot of folders where there's forms that managers can fill in, that technicians can fill in. There's training forms that trainers can submit to me when they've completed classes. But if I click on this company drive, you can also see I've got a nice log of everything that might have occurred within my safety program that I need to see at a glance. Hazard assessments that were completed, incident reports, permits, safety training, and I can differentiate between whether those are safety training sessions that were held in person or safety trainings that were held at some remote location. Hazards that have been reported, and I can store my safety policies in here so I can distribute those to other people. And even safety training content that I want to push out to managers so that they can do on-site training classes with multimedia for their employees. So this is what I mean when I say safety directors and managers should have a bird's eye view of everything going on. Now you'll notice the icon next to all of these completed folders. When it says completed, first of all, it means these are forms or submissions that have been sent in to me by my remote managers. So every hazard assessment that's been completed, every job risk assessment, every risk assessment in general, every job analysis, every incident report, every permit, all safety training, I click on one folder and I've got those completed documents that have been submitted to me. Same thing with permits. I've got a couple samples in here. Incident reports where an injury has occurred. I've got a full list of all of those. I can open any of those up at any given time and see what happened with those. Safety training classes that have been committed, all of those sort of things. The icon of the folder is important because this shows you that it's an indicator to you that there are documents in that folder that have been submitted for me to be able to review as a safety manager. But what about managing OSHA logs? These aren't forms that somebody might necessarily submit to me. How do I get access to the forms that I need to manage as a safety director tied to my responsibility to OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration? We do have some registrants that I know registered ahead of time from outside of the U.S. if you're not familiar with that organization. What about OSHA logs? Well, I happen to have an OSHA 300 log in my system here, and what many of you know about the OSHA 300 log is it's not a form that gets submitted on a regular basis like a training class that's been completed. It's a log, literally a log, that you'll update and manage on an ongoing way. So I can even manage something like an OSHA 300 log that either I or one of the people on my team as a safety manager can fill in on a regular basis, and as each injury occurs, heaven forbid, but as each injury occurs that we need to log on this form, I can simply log in, add that entry to that form, save it back to where it was, and it's much like a digital file cabinet. So that's what that cabinet file feature does right there. It allows you to store forms that are in the form of a log that you need to maintain and update, and you may or may not need to notify somebody when that log is updated. So I can even manage things like the OSHA 300 log here. The company drive feature is the feature that I showed you about. Let's say let's say a manager has completed a training class, and before we take that document and simply archive it to SharePoint or something along those lines, I want to see that document. We can configure Fluix with you so that every permit, every safety training class that's completed, everything is routed through you first as a safety manager, just to eyeball it, just to see how the form was filled in, see if it was complete, to notice anything that from a comment standpoint that somebody might have filled in before you archive that form. So that's what this group inbox and my inbox here allows you to do. If a document has been signed off on by an employee or by a manager, it will now return to you to review if you've configured Fluix that way. So this is kind of the way that you'll have a bird's eye view of everything going on within your program. Now, some of you might be wondering, but wait, it's not just the documents I need to review. It's really the data analysis that I need to do. I told you that we would talk about that in a little bit. Let me just make real quick mention of that. One of the great things about Fluix as a form processing and as a data capture tool and platform is the mobile component of it. And in a little bit here, I'm going to bring up my iPad for you, and you can see exactly how how iPads and iPhones can be brought to bear to be used within Fluix for people to, on the go, complete inspections, submit training forms, or submit training documentation, all of that sort of thing. The most important thing to take away for now is for you as a safety director to know that in any given process, any given document that has been submitted to you, the data can be captured for that document. So yes, you may want the document to go someplace for archiving and for auditing later, and that's important, of course, but any given document, you might want to also pull out the information from that document, like the location of injuries, for example, or the employees that were injured, or what if an employee has been hospitalized? What if you don't need to know about the minor injuries because you have 5,000 employees you have oversight over, and you expect the local managers to make sure that they provide the care and so forth to others. But what about the injuries that are more significant and require hospitalization? Well, you can even configure Fluix so that it captures data in such a granular way that you are notified of only those conditional situations. Where do you do this? In Fluix, we have a really neat feature called data sets. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to see the data behind any one of your processes separate from other processes. So let's say you use, for example, Power BI or Tableau for your for your data visualization, and you want to map out all the occurrences of certain types of injuries. You want to pinpoint what's going on so that you can start to make changes in your organization. Well, Fluix allows you to set up a data set so that every single time a document is submitted, without you having to do anything, the data from that document that is submitted, it's extracted, pushed to Power BI, pushed to Tableau in real time, or even just made available for you to be able to download. So let's say, for example, I want to see all of the hazards that are reported in my organization. I've just clicked on hazards reported. You can see I can immediately download that as an Excel file or as a CSV file, or I can export it to Power BI or to Tableau. That's my options with the export piece. You might also notice that I've got a customize button up here on the top left. Let me explain that one because it's a really neat one. Let's say you've got a very exhaustive, very complicated form for people to report hazards, but you only need to capture 3 or 4 of the fields on that form in a summary way so that you can just see a running total of all of the hazards that have been reported. If I were to click on hazards reported and choose customize, Fluix allows you to create subsets of data so that the only thing that you're now reporting on with this subset of data are select fields. So if I pull this up right now and I want to make an edit to it, you can see I've got a sample safety hazard reporting form here. I can choose to just have these 4 fields pulled out of this form every time it's submitted by any employee that submits a hazard report to me. I've got a lot of fields in here, including contact fields and so forth, but I only want these 4 fields specifically chosen and sent on to me. Remember the situation I told you about with hospitalization. Let's say you've got an incident that's occurred at one of your locations. Somebody could text you, they could make a phone call to you, of course. Again, with 5,000 employees, with so much going on in your job as a safety director, it's going to be difficult for you to always be immediately available. But you do want highlighted notification of just specific types of incidents that have occurred. You can do the same thing with notification rules. So let's say, for example, I have an incident reporting form that I want my employees to use anytime an injury it requires hospitalization, there's a serious illness or anything like that. And on that sheet, I've got one specific question that says, was hospitalization required? I can configure Fluix so that if the answer to the hospitalization question is a yes, You can send a very custom report to a specific user. They'll get an attachment of that report. They're not notified necessarily of every injury or illness, but they are notified when there's hospitalization required. So it's literally just a matter of, it takes about 20 seconds to set up these types of notifications. You can set them up on any parameter on any of your forms, whether it's about the training topic, whether it's about certain parameters or variables on your confined space permits. Again, I've done it for safety incident reporting. It could be hazards reported, anything like that. You can set up very specific conditional custom notifications. So when I talk about oversight at your fingertips of what's going on in your safety program with not a lot of complexity, it's a couple of clicks and you can see all the training forms that have been submitted in the last year. A couple clicks, you can see every confined space permit that's been submitted over the last year. A couple clicks and you can see every hazard that's been reported in your organization over the last year. That's the kind of power that you would have with Fluix. And not only would you have this available to you in the browser the way I'm showing you, but you can even see it on the iPad. You can see it on the go. As a safety manager, might be visiting a certain location and you want to see, hey, how many hazards have been reported from this location? You pull it up on your iPad and now you have access to what's going on just at that specific location, or just submitted by these employees from that specific locations. So that's kind of a quick view of what the oversight opportunities available are with Fluix. It's pretty cool. You have a lot of power. You have a lot of control over how you configure Fluix. One of the things that I love about our platform, and I think about for safety managers, and I think about the role that I used to play, is I may have very specific ways that I want to run my safety program, very specific forms that I want to use, very specific approval processes that I want to follow that I've come to really like, that give me even better insight onto how things work. Or culturally, as our company, we need things to work a certain way. A lot of safety management software requires you to learn a way of working with that software, and you work within the confines of that software. With Fluix, we don't make any assumptions about how you might want to run your safety program. We simply allow you to configure the platform in exactly the way you want to be in the loop on what's going on with your safety program. We focus on the process, the documentation, all of that, and you can focus on the data analysis. So that's why I talk about being able to download the data for Excel, use in Excel, or pushing it to Power BI and Tableau. We want to make it easier for you to configure Fluix to work the way you want to. We'll automate all of the tedious work so that you can really truly spend more time with the analysis work, with the conversations that need to be had, so that you can really truly focus on safe work behaviors. So that's the oversight side. Let's talk a little bit about the mobile side, because you're one part of the equation as the safety director, but your managers play an integral part in this as well, let alone your employees, who are important with the process. So let's go into, we're going to talk about safety on the go for your managers. All right. What I pulled up is my iPad in real time here, and you're seeing the same Fluix app that you saw in the browser a moment ago. You're now seeing the mobile version of that app. It's a even more streamlined app. We recognize that many of our users, the real world users, are not the people who are doing data analysis. They're not the people that are configuring safety training forms, writing safety policies. They're the ones that are executing the plans. They're the ones that are completing the safety training. They're the ones that need to sign off that they've completed safety training. Therefore, the mobile and the user experience for them needs to be as streamlined as possible. So what you're seeing is the view that your mobile users, for example, your field managers might have, or your remote safety managers that you partner with, will have in the Fluix app on their iPad. I've got templates, which are fill-in-the-blank forms, in my case. Those might be hazard reporting forms for technicians, job hazard assessment forms for managers, safety incident reporting forms for managers. You can configure how the wording is on all of this. These are just folder names that I have currently, but I have all of these forms available at my fingertips with just a couple of taps. So if I wanted to show that I had done safety training that you, as my safety director, asked me to do on my mobile app, I can bring up that safety training form after completing or at the beginning of my safety training class. I can fill in such fields as the training subject, the training date, location. How often we do this this class? Let's say it's annually. In fact, let's type something in here. Let's say I'm doing a hearing protection class. I say what the location is. The training date is today, the 24th. And I fill in the rest of this form. And then I hand my iPad around to the class for each member of the class to now fill in that they were present in the class. They'll sign in with their first name and their last name, and there's even a signature field off to the right-hand side for them to add their initials or add their signature or something along those lines. As I've completed this training, once this training is over, I will simply tap the submit button. And what that's allowing me to do is something really cool. Now when I tap the submit button as the safety manager, it's giving me a chance to tell the safety director that I've just completed this training. So you can see on my screen coming up here is I'm going to assign this document to a safety director, and I can add a comment to that as well. Training completed for, training for half of my team. That message will be tagged along with this document so that the safety manager sees my note. There's a little bit of a lag between my iPad sharing and the actual screen that in the presentation, but it'll come through here in a moment for you. Training for half my team is completed. I'll hit the reassign button, and now that document has been submitted to the safety director. Now in my case, with my Fluix account, I'm in the group of safety directors, so I have access to these safety training records, and I'll have the document assigned to me directly. So not only can I fill in the form, but I'll have the forms pushed to me. So that's why you're seeing this really neat push notification come forward. If you're a safety director at one location and a safety manager has just completed their training at another location, you can get push notifications just like this. You don't have to have them, but if you like to have that sort of real-time view of training that's been completed and now the document's been forwarded to you to review, you'll get that push notification. You can hit OK on that, and I can go to my inbox and see that safety training has been committed. There's that form. There's one of the forms that's been submitted to me. In the group inbox, let's say I'm more than one. There's more than one safety training director, and here's our one that was completed today. There's the hearing protection class that's been submitted to me. So I have in my inbox when documents are assigned directly to me. I have a group inbox when documents are assigned to the group of people that need to have oversight over those documents, and I'm in that group as well. So that's why this hearing protection showed up in the group inbox. You'll also notice the document has been automatically named. There's no save as, there's no attaching a document to an email, nothing like that has to happen. The document is forwarded automatically with an email notification and even with a push notification to the next user in the approval process or in the review process. So the idea here is to make the process for a field manager who may not be technically savvy, make it very easy for them to be able to submit a document to you in real time. So you can see the document. All they have to do is tap a blue submit button, maybe add a comment to it as well. If I'm that safety director, I can even see their note by tapping on the comment bubble up at the top, where if I tap that bubble, a little icon will pop up, or a little window will pop up showing me who made the comment and what their comment is. Training for half of my team. So that's a quick shot at what it looks like for safety training. What about permits? The permit process is also important. You've got somebody who's out in the maybe they're outside at some remote location, not a work location like a plant, a facility, a job site for construction. They're literally out in the public needing to submit permits and forms to you. They can do the same thing with Fluix. In fact, they can still access Fluix even offline so that they can start filling in these forms for you. So I talked about confined spaces, for example. So here's an example of a confined space permit with all of its various fields that need to be filled in. As a manager out in the field, you've got to, or as a confined space attendant out in the field, these permits have to be completed, as some of you may know, anytime you're going to enter into the definition of a confined space, which we won't get into in this call, but this is a required form that's got to be on file within your company. Well, you can allow your teams to fill this in on an iPad. You can make certain fields checkboxes, drop downs, date fields, all of that sort of thing. Certain fields required. versus other fields that are just text fields that have to be typed in and are optional. But this person can fill this in even offline, tap the submit button, and if they are offline, the document is queued to be sent the next time the iPad is online. So it doesn't matter the nature of the form. Your field managers can be enlisted in your safety management work in the most clean and efficient ways possible. And you don't have to send them the forms. They already have access to them on their iPad, again, offline if necessary, and they can submit them to you in real time as well. I'll close that one out. I've talked about safety training acknowledgement forms. So it's one thing to have a training go around the horn in a group of people and have each one of those people sign off on an iPad that training has been completed. But let's say you want individual employees to literally sign off their own acknowledgement that they have either received certain safety policies or that they have sat through specific training. You can send employees a document that you initiate, individual employees, a document that you initiate for them to acknowledge, sign off at their own personal, private safety acknowledgement. So this is an alternative to that safety training form I showed before, where you've got a full roster of safety training. So this would be a safety training topic conducted by, you might give a summary of the training that was covered, and this is one employee's form that they would fill in acknowledging that they have signed off on this. So one of two things can happen here. Either the employee can literally sign off on it on the iPad right here, or you can go one step further. And either as a safety director, as a manager, as a safety trainer, what have you, either from the browser or here on the iPad like I am right now, you can actually send this document to their email address for them to get a link and to sign off on the document that they, again, have received that training. So I just tapped, again, there's a lag on the iPad here, but what I just tapped is the submit button. And when I tap the submit button, up comes a window that allows me to send this document to the employee, either to send it to them for filling in and signing, or I may choose to just allow them to only sign that form and not fill in those fields. I'm going to fill in the rest of the fields for them. The training subject, their name, the date the training was held, all of the details from the training class. So I'll fill that in. I'll add their email address in there. There's my personal email address. And I will send that on. And what will happen next is that employee will get an email with a link that they can click on and sign off on, yes, I attended that training. And all of those documents are filed into your Fluix account. Now, let me back up for just 1 minute, because what I often run into in this type of situation is companies that have, I'm just sending one acknowledgement to one employee, but what if you have 50 employees that you need to sign off on a safety policy that you've just issued? You can use Fluix to push the safety policy to them through the Fluix app, and they can view all of that content. They won't need to sign off on the content or anything like that. Bear with me while the iPad catches up here. But you might need them to have them, again, sign off an acknowledgement. And doing the process you just saw, doing that 50 times, that's not really doable. That's not really efficient at all. So what you can do is go back to the main interface of Fluix and use what's called our bulk send and sign. And you can actually send a document to a number of recipients to sign off on, and it can be hundreds of people. Before I click that button, let me go back and show you that I have already done this on one occasion right here. I sent a hearing protection acknowledgement. When I click on show details, I had one safety training acknowledgement form that I was able to upload that had a signature field on it. If it doesn't have a signature field, Fluix allows you to add the signature field. And I was able to send it to multiple employees all at the same time. One activity by me can send it off. I send it off to 3 employees, but you can send it off to 50. You can send it off to 100 employees. And it doesn't have to be a form that they fill in. It's really just an acknowledgement that they received the safety policies. All of those acknowledgements can either be sent to you as emails, so that you get each one of the submissions sent back to you as an attachment with the form completed, or they can be uploaded to your Fluix account. So all of them that are signed off on are all stored in a certain location, and you can download them from there. What's great about having them uploaded into something like your Fluix storage is you can see a running total of all of the documents if you ever needed to. So there's an audit trail that goes along with that, which is really cool. So you can see that all these documents were sent, and you can see that all the documents were submitted as well. In fact, if each one of these employees were to sign off on this document in this very interface, I can see that the documents were returned and by which employees and when they were signed off. So it's yet another way that you can sort of put the acknowledgement process, the documentation process on cruise control, as I mentioned with Fluix. All right, before I go any further, I want to talk about documents because this is the heart of what Fluix is. We've talked about pushing documents to employees and managers and forms, not just documents. We've talked about receiving completed submissions from managers and even sometimes from employees. But let's just say you have reference materials that you need to push to employees. You've got all of these files that are already stored in SharePoint, all of these files on policies that are already stored in Dropbox. Maybe it's even your personal Dropbox account. One of the really neat things about Fluix is it allows you to do two things tied to the distribution of documents. One is you can connect your remote storage. All of the folders and documents that I've been using in this example today are actually documents and folders that are stored in my Google Drive. So these are external files that have been pulled into Fluix and then distributed through Fluix to my employees. So I don't have to share a folder with them within within Google Drive and wonder who has had access to these. I can use Fluix as the delivery vehicle for documents that are actually stored, in my case, Google Drive, but you can use any number of resources. OneDrive and SharePoint, which is very common in the enterprise. You can use Google Drive like I've done, Dropbox. You can use Box, and you can even connect through more advanced methods. You can connect those storage tools, and then you can have very tight granular control over who has access to which documents. So safety policies, maybe all of your users have access to, but safety forms, only your managers have access to. That's handled through our group feature. So you can see I've got analysts, engineers, managers, safety directors, safety trainers, and technicians, and you can have an unlimited number of groups, and employees can be in more than one group. You can determine who has access to files when you're distributing them through the use of our group feature. That determines who is participating in a workflow. That's what we call it, is a workflow. The other thing that's great about about how we allow you to distribute documents is, as I mentioned before, we have what's called a company drive feature. The company drive feature is a really unique one within Fluix because it allows you to push content to your employees, to your managers, that only needs to be a one-way pushed. So I just need them to see and reference this material, even on the go on their iPads. I don't need them to fill in a form and send it back to me. When it comes to that sort of one-way push of view-only content, Fluix goes one step beyond traditional documents. So what I didn't show you was my Google Drive, but in my Google Drive, I actually have safety training videos as well. I can push safety training content to managers within Fluix, set up a workflow that shares that content folder with those managers. The content is then pushed to their Fluix iPad app, and they can use that content with their employees later on. So let me show you an example of this. Switching back over to my iPad, and I've chosen the company drive feature. And you'll notice I have a couple of videos there. I have the fall protection video and I have a proper lifting video. Those are not PDFs. You might have noticed a lot of these documents are PDFs so far. That is the primary mechanism through which we use forms to be transmitted. But if you just need to push content to your managers to reference Word files that are safety policies, PowerPoints, anything like that, or in this case, an MP4, a training video, you can also make those available as well. So what you're seeing right now is me tapping on a fall protection training video with the audio that maybe you can't hear through the YouTube channel, but this is the fall protection training video that a manager can show employees. They can show this content and then use that with the training verification. So Fluix becomes the vehicle to do both of those tasks. So again, we talk about putting documentation on cruise control. Not only can you get the documentation part squared away, you can even push the content to the managers so that you don't have to shoot an email to them with the, oh, here's the updated version of the video I want you guys to use for the training, or here's the updated version of the form I want you guys to use. Fluix becomes the mechanism to transmit the documents and to transmit other file formats as well. All right, so that's my overview of Fluix from a document sharing standpoint, from a data set extraction standpoint, from a user standpoint in the field. We talk a lot about automating work. We talk about how routine tasks need to be transformed and digitized within organizations so that you can focus on more meaningful work. That is one of our missions at Fluix, and I have to tell you that we take this very seriously. When we help managers with specific use cases, for example, health, safety, and environmental, we don't make any assumptions about how you might want to automate that work. We don't assume anything about how you might want to route documents for approval. We don't make any assumptions about what kind of overview process you might want to have. We don't even make any assumptions about where you might want your documents to be stored, whether they're fill-in-the-blank templates or they are submissions of those documents. All we assume is that you want to streamline the process. And that's the platform that we've provided. I started off this call by talking to you guys a little bit about how you have oversight as a safety director at all times of everything that's going on. What I didn't show you is how you can even see on a step-by-step basis how every step of a document's life cycle can be viewed. If an incident occurs and it's reported to a manager reports it to a director reports it to the safety manager, you can see the entire flow or the document history as that document has exchanged hands from one person to another and new information has been added to it. If employees need to add photos to a document in the middle of a process so they can highlight where an incident occurred or where a hazard exists, they can do that right there from the mobile app as well within Fluix. Those documents can be attached to those photos can be attached to the document, and the document can be uploaded from there. If you want to see how that document has evolved, you can also see that by logging into Fluix in the browser. So there's no software to download if you're a PC user. If you're a Mac user, there's no software that you ever have to download to your computer. There's no code that you have to have written for you by your IT team. In fact, for many of our organizations, the only extent to which they have to have their IT team involved in helping deploy Fluix is connecting that storage so that the IT team feels confident that we're a secure source for storing materials. We are ISO certified, I should mention on that. But if they want to have that kind of oversight on how the connection to a remote storage is made, they can be in charge of that. But from there, Fluix can be configured to adapt to whatever process you want. The point of our platform is to replicate your currently manual and paper-based processes, or maybe over-engineered or over-designed processes, and turn them into a streamlined, effortless, automatic process. Office personnel are often a key part of this process as well. Maybe it's archiving the documents, maybe it's searching for documents. All of that is extremely easy in Fluix. You're literally just a couple of clicks away at any given moment of seeing a document or finding a document that from a inspection that was conducted or an inspection that was submitted by a consultant. You can even upload those into Fluix. Any document, no matter how old that document is, finding it is a matter of 2 clicks. You can go into all of a specific workflow, or you can go to your dashboard and view all of the documents that have been going through the process, use our smart search feature, and use one or more filters to see all documents that have been submitted over time within your location. If you use the naming convention feature of Fluix, which allows you to automatically name documents as well with the dates they were submitted or other variables within the document itself, you can even search on those parameters as well. Date ranges, names of documents, status of the document, the submitter of the document, anything associated with that. If you have the location where an inspection occurred built into the name of the document, you can even do a search just based on those location names. So Fluix really is designed to make it easy for you to have immediate access to a document no matter what the purpose was. We talked to a company in the wind energy industry in Scotland just a couple of months ago, and their investigations have become costly, they've become painful, and they've cost them millions of dollars literally in labor costs and in litigation costs, primarily due to the inability to track either training that's occurred or incidents occurred or a combination of those, and they couldn't find the documents associated with it. Why? because the documents were paper-based and they're placed in a file cabinet. And even if they are digitized, no one knows where in SharePoint that one document is stored. With Fluix, all of that goes away. Whether you use SharePoint, whether you use Dropbox, or whether you use the built-in storage that we provide, all of your documents are easily discoverable with just a few clicks. And it doesn't really matter what the document's purpose was. So with that is our overview of Fluix. That's how the process can be streamlined. That's how you can put the process on cruise control. I'm eager to find out what you think about Fluix for your specific use case. We do have, as I mentioned, Fluix being used in environments where the internal team is managing safety, but we also have environments where Fluix is being used by external consultants for fire safety inspections, for fire extinguisher inspections, for safety committee meetings that are outsourced to the team. Any of these processes can be digitized. Any of these processes where the responsibility can be distributed across a remote team. Fluix makes the ability to automate the submissions of these documents, to find these documents, to get alerted when there's serious hazards related to these documents extremely easy. And the final thing I'll say about this is when it comes to putting it on cruise control, it's very common that safety departments have rolled out Fluix within a matter of a week. The configuration process is done hand in hand with our client development team. We'll literally build the storage folder hierarchy with you. We'll build workflows, and all participants of this, or all registrants really, of this workshop will have access to some sample templates that we'll provide, training verification forms, safety committee meetings, free checklists, free resources, that sort of thing. But if you have your own, we'll help you even adapt those to be used within Fluix. Very little effort it typically takes to do this. The creation of workflows, which is how you distribute the documents and route the collection of them or route the approval process, that is also an easy thing for us to do as well. We've had one person internally say it's a lot like riding a bike. It may seem hard at first, but with all software, it has a learning curve associated with it. But as you have a person who knows what they're doing, hold your hand through the process, typically only takes a couple few hours to set things up, to test them out, to try with 2 or 3 additional employees, and then to deploy to as many employees as you need. We have teams of 10 to 15 managing their health and safety department with Fluix. We have consulting companies that have 200 employees managing all of their activities within Fluix, and we have companies with 2,000 employees using Fluix to manage their toolbox talks, pushing out their safety content, receiving their safety verification from their employees, identifying hazards, all of that. So it doesn't matter what aspect of your safety program, one small part or the entire part of the documentation process, we can absolutely help you put it on cruise control. So I'm glad that we had a chance to share Fluix with you today and talk about how to put safety documentation on cruise control, take a lot of stress out of safety management. I promised you a couple things at the end of this. Here's what you're going to receive as a registrant for having participated with Fluix. Part 1 of what you'll receive in the next 2 days is an email chock full of resources, helpful tips and best practices on safety committees, on safety training, on safety inspections and safety audits. Free resources to help with that. Forms that will help you with all of the verification processes, whether it's confined spaces, safety training, safety incident reporting, hazard reporting, job risk assessments, hazard identification, all of those. We've got a whole packet of forms that we're going to send to you that we can make available for you. They work well within Fluix, although as I mentioned, you can bring your own forms right into Fluix as well. And then the last piece of the puzzle, simply by having registered for this workshop, we are going to choose one person at random and identify that person and share with everybody who that person was within the next 2 days to receive 90-day access to Fluix. We typically have a 14-day trial, and we want you to take advantage of that. Work hand in hand with us. Shoot an email to sales@fluix.io in order to take advantage of that free trial. That's a 14-day process. We set everything up for you manually, and then you can use those next 13 days to simply test it all out. But we are choosing one person at random to run their safety program for 90 days, either part of it or a significant part of the content distribution for a period of 90 days as a pilot program. You'll have full access of all the features, no limitations. We only want to work with you to help configure things. So stay tuned for that announcement that will come out within the next 2 days. Thank you all for participating today. We're excited to have done this workshop with you. The link to this workshop will be made available to all registrants as well, so stay tuned to your email. The next 2 days will be outstanding. thanks everybody for participating. We hope you take a closer look at Fluix for health and safety and environmental use, forms, safety policy distribution, safety training content distribution as well, safety committee management, you name it. Safety can be put on cruise control with how you use Fluix. So thanks for participating today, and we look forward to talking to you in the next few days.